for me, that epiphany was around mid-30s. I think the classic case of alcohol wasn't serving me in the way that it did in my 20s. It felt like mostly upside. I had a great time, and I'm not going to deny any of that, but in the mid-30s, those hangovers started to hang around for more days than I'd like. I was overweight, unfit, life had plateaued a bit.
Hey everyone, it's Tony Will. I am back with another really exciting episode of Women In. And I say that about all my guests, but this one I really mean it. So, not that I don't mean it otherwise, but before you meet him, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generations. Whether our paths cross professionally or personally, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world, and this man is one of them. Andy Ramage is a former professional footballer who, following a career-ending injury, went on to establish 2 successful financial brokerages. After taking a transformative break from alcohol, Andy experienced profound changes in his mind, body, career, and overall life. Now, a decade later, he is widely regarded as one of the world's leading alcohol-free performance coaches. Andy is the best-selling author of the 28-Day Alcohol-Free Challenge and Let's Do This: How to Use Motivational Psychology to Change Your Habits for Life. His influential TEDx talk, The Limitless Pill, has inspired countless individuals to unlock their full potential. So I'm going to pause here because Andy's bio continues to go on. I want to read this last paragraph from this because he actually interviewed me for part of this. In addition to his coaching work, so Andy's a coach too, he's producing a groundbreaking documentary called Going Dry, set for the release of summer 2026, that aims to be the alcohol-free equivalent of The Game Changers, shining a spotlight on the benefits of an alcohol-free lifestyle. Andy has a coaching business school too, and we're going to get into all of that, but it's just an honor to have Andy on. Hey, Andy.
Yeah, this is so cool. And do you know what? It's funny you mentioned the documentary. I've literally just spent the last hour and a half watching what is almost the final draft.
Oh my gosh. How's it coming together?
Good. A little bit like we mentioned about the book. It's one of those things, you spend a lot of time and effort on this thing, 3 years in the making, and especially being on the other side of the camera, you don't quite know how it's going to look. So the first time I watched the draft, you're almost watching it through your fingers, if you know what I mean. Like, is this going to be any good? Or, is this actually going to be something that I'm proud to be a part of? And I have to say, it's superseded all expectations. I'm so proud of what we've created, and I'm sure it's going to help so many people.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a pin in this real quick and come back to it because I want to talk about it more. But first, let's tell everyone how you and I met, because I think I always love to start there, because I think the power of saying yes can lead to so many different relationships that you never maybe saw coming. So how did you and I end up in the same room meeting?
Yeah, well, I said yes to this wonderful event held in Orlando in January that we were at, which was really a collection of people from the alcohol-free space, sober space, coming together, the movers and shakers and thinkers and contributors in that space. And I decided to fly over from the UK. And one of the big reasons I did that, because in my mind, my tiny mind, I thought Orlando, January, hot, Bermuda shorts, sunbathing, UK, freezing. So I jump on a plane with my Bermuda shorts packed, and it was freezing, absolutely freezing.
It was.
But apart from that, it was just a joyous opportunity to get together with like-minded people like yourself and be so inspired by all these incredible people that had flown from all over the globe and all over the North America, really just to share some insights and learns about how we can help people in the alcohol-free space and increase the movement and reach more people. So yeah, it was joyous. And I got to see you talk, and you were brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
Your talk was absolutely outstanding.
Thank you. Yeah. So Andy doesn't know this, but I'm sure you've heard this over the years. Your TEDx, the Limitless Pill, and I've been a coach. I've owned my own coaching business for the last 5 years. And that TEDx I have shared with almost every single one of my clients. And so I know you don't know that because I didn't tell you that in Orlando.
Yeah.
But when you were there, I was like, no fucking way. This is cool. And I'm like, I'm going to meet this guy. And what I love about you, Andy, is, and I've heard you on other podcasts like Rich Rolls. I've really, like these leaders in this space, and you're so down to earth. There's no ego. There's no like, I am, you created 1 year, no beer. There's no like pretentiousness or anything. And that's what I aspire to be. So I just wanted to tell you that. I don't float out compliments lightly, but it really was like, you're just Andy.
Yeah, and I love that. And what's nice behind that TEDx talk even, and this goes back to the heart of, for me, being alcohol free, and one of the biggest benefits of it, that you really gain that sense of self-worth again. You get more courageous in your decisions again. And I remember the first time I ever spoke in public was so bad. And this was around the time that we just started One You Know Beer. And I spoke in front of two people. One of them was the co-founder in One You Know Beer. The other was a speaker coach. Not a very good speaker coach, not one that I definitely trained. So I do my little talk, and it's so bad. I know what a comedian feels like when they die on stage. Just terrible. Bright red, could have fried an egg on my forehead, I think. My words wouldn't come out. It was a fumbled mess. I got to the end of this thing. It was only about 2 minutes long. The speaker coach turns to the other co-founder and says, if you've got an important message to share, he's pointing at me. He's not your guy. And I share that because it is important, because sometimes people see a TED talk or, a book or whatever it is, and they think, oh, you must have...
Yes.
You just got that in the locker, right? You just stood up and did it. Actually, the truth is, very often the story is that every master was once a disaster. I was terrible. Absolutely. I couldn't tell you how bad I was at public speaking, like petrified. Yeah, it's a drilled skill, and that would never have happened, the courage to drill that skill, had I been drinking. These are the little things that make a huge difference. I just wouldn't have had that ability to do so. I would have stayed small and said, no, that's not for me. I'm embarrassed. I'm out. Whereas actually, I think because I was alcohol free, it was like, well, maybe speaking's a skill. Maybe I can just practice and rehearse and I'll get better. And of course, you do.
You do. You really do. You have to start somewhere. And I can tell as a speaker myself, a TEDx speaker too, like we don't shoot out of the wombs orators. Like no one has. And so you have to practice. And I don't know what went into your TEDx in terms of prep, but I know I put about 80 to 90 hours in fully in writing, preparing, being coached. I mean, it was legit one of the hardest things to prepare for. And so what was your prep similar?
Similar, yeah. So in the end, you could just stand up and you press play, really, aren't you? You're pressing play, and then that gives you, if you've rehearsed enough, a bit more freedom to sort of take it in and, observe the crowd and play the crowd and whatnot. But yeah, that was unbelievable amounts of rehearsal to get to that point. And then it looks like I think that's the sign of a great speech, is when it looks like someone's just made it up on the spot. But actually, you'll find it's always really well rehearsed. No one just makes it up on the spot in a way that is really memorable.
No, and I remember, because I could be naive at times. Like I would watch these TEDx's and think, God, they just walked up on this stage and did this. And then when I saw how the sausage was made, I'm like, oh God, Tony, you were fucking clueless. And so it really is a lot of hard work. And doing this again, we're peeking through you were probably the same way. When I first saw the video, I was like, oh God, because you don't know what you really look like on the red dot.
No. Again, that is another staring through fingers moment of, is this going to be an absolute shock? And then you watch it and go, oh, that's not too bad. But I'm the same with podcasts, even listening back to them on, you're thinking, oh no, is this going to be terrible? I think that's just human nature. But again, coming back to my favourite topic, I think you just get better, as Susan Jeffers, titled her book, of feeling that fear and just doing it anyway. And then, yes, there's a bit of trepidation around the end result, but you've got to be courageous enough to try in the first place.
Yeah, let's talk about courageous to try in the first place. So walk me back. You created two financial brokerages. You were bellying up to the bar with the boys type of thing, closing deals that way. You talked about that in your TEDx. So tell me about that tipping point, and what has cracked open to you for being so courageous to say, I want to live differently, and then weave into that, if you will, what happened with the financial brokerages. Is that a world you're in anymore, or are you fully into your coaching business and all the things you're doing, your docuseries, all of that?
Yeah, so and in truth, I had two young daughters, and my lovely wife Tara, and I just wasn't being the dad that I wanted to be or the husband that I wanted to be. Huge, that was huge for me. That my values as a man, as a father, as a husband, I just don't think I was showing up in the way that I wanted to show up. So that really started to grate on me. Plus, I looked around at my colleagues and peers and noticed a running theme. Lots of very quote unquote successful people by that one yardstick of money, but by and large broken, mentally, physically, estranged from children, many marriages, addicted, depressed. Barely anyone was happy, which it just didn't make any sense. You know, I was always taught that if you earned enough money, then you'd always be happy. But then when I looked around and did that observation, I went, well, actually, no one's happy. So we're doing something wrong. So it was that courageous moment of, I am not following that path, because that path clearly is not working. For all of these people that I can see, I'm doing something different. So I started to do the classic ice bath and meditate and movement and nutrition. Nothing would stick because I was really inconsistent. And then eventually, out of desperation, and it was desperation, the last thing I questioned was alcohol. And I think that's so true for so many people. It's like I lift all the rocks rather than the big whopping great big one that's going to get me all the results. And out of desperation, I thought, maybe it's that alcohol thing. Maybe it's alcohol that's getting in the way. But, you know, the thought of taking it away would scare the life out of me, right? It was how I did business, how I met my friends, what would happen to Funtime Andy with my wife Tara run off with the postman who liked a drink or two, and how the hell was I going to dance at weddings, like without alcohol? So the fear of it almost stopped me from starting on my break, but I just sensed I've got to run this test, an experiment. So I decided to take a break. It was the only way that I could get people off my back. I couldn't just say I'd stop drinking, right? Because clients were like, what do you mean you're not drinking? Don't be such a lightweight, rubber arm twisted. So in the end, that's where we create One Beer. I just created this little challenge in my own mind that I started telling people about just to buy some time. But before I got to that, I slipped up and blipped up and made every mistake you can think of. But I didn't give up. I became really intrigued as to why I'm drinking. And I really realised that I had a thinking problem, not a drinking problem. That's the way I describe it, a thinking problem, not a drinking problem. I just had to change my thinking, and I didn't know how. That's how I got into coaching. I wanted to learn everything I could about my brain and behavioural change. Went back to university twice, did degrees, master's degrees in positive psychology. To understand this thing, how do we make change, especially in a world that's awash with alcohol? And trying to crack that code, which I eventually did, was the greatest gift of my life. I became the dad that I wanted to be, the husband that I knew I could be. And the lovely irony was that my business ended up growing 7 times bigger in half the time of the previous ones, even though I thought it might fail, because you can't be a broker and not drink, right? Because they all do. And actually it turned out it was a superpower in broking, because my clients really liked it when I was always on the ball for 5 days a week instead of a hero for 3 and then absolute 0 for Thursday and Friday, because I'd been out on a Wednesday night. And my relationships blossomed. I felt fit again. I lost 42 pounds in weight, body fat went from 35%, athlete fit again, 10%. My heart rate, which had gone from an athlete 41 up to 68 when I was drinking, went all the way back down to 41, where it still is today. I mean, it's like the physiological changes, the psychological changes were just so dramatic for me. I just felt inspired that there's probably lots of people a bit like me that was in that middle lane. And I think that's important to define as well. Like, what type of drinker was I? I wasn't addicted. There was no rock bottom in my story. I was in that middle lane, which I describe as sandwiched in between those that are completely dependent on alcohol, addicted, alcoholic, whatever you want to call, versus those that are completely abstinent. That's the middle lane in between, which is everyone, right? And that's a big gradient. That includes those that drink very occasionally, once a year, to those that are on the verge of slipping into dependency. I was definitely at the upper end of that. And was I drinking too much? Absolutely. But who isn't? Who isn't drinking too much? Look around, everyone's drinking too much. I wasn't exceptional by any means, but it had this huge negative impact on my life that I was a bit unsure whether that was truly the case or not. And then I removed it and realised it was holding me back. And I think in terms of performance, and I do a lot of work with people now in terms of performance, I really think it was holding me back by about 50%, 50% of what I was capable of. And if you think about most adults, we start drinking in our teens and never ever stop. That means the entirety, basically, of your adult life, for me, I would have been underperforming by about 50%. 50% less fun, 50% less joy, 50% less income, 50% less being the best dad I wanted to be. That is unbelievable. So when I got that back, it was like a superpower. I just thought, I've got to try and share this, do something with this. There must be millions and millions of people like me in that middle lane that might benefit from my story. Turns out there's about 2.3 billion in that middle lane. There's quite a few. And I thought, imagine if I can, I don't know, help in some way. And that really was the genesis for all of the initiatives that I've been involved in ever since.
Yeah, initiatives, projects. This is what this world is that we're in. And I smile because it is so many different arms to what we're doing, projects. So you've got books, you've 1 Year No Beer, your docuseries, your coaching, and what comes within coaching. It could be retreats, it could be conferences, it could, I mean, whatever you're, so tell me about how that has grown and how you've gotten, and this is part of the courageous, I wrote a note about this, because you have become you're an influencer, whether you love that term or not, in this field. When someone says I'm an influencer, I laugh. I'm like, I do not see myself that way, but okay, it's a compliment. Or a thought leader, or I prefer thinking leader, because thought is like past tense. Thinking, we're here in the now. But you are very public, and so by that I mean people know who you are. You're recognized, and so somewhere in there you had this identity shift of being proud of being a non-drinker in a heavy drinking culture. So I'm asking a lot of questions all wrapped into one maybe somewhat confusing ball, but the identity shift from drinker to non-drinker, coupled with being successful with a public image around this, how has that shaped what you're doing, and how do you manage all the projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think the identity shift is huge. Because I was self-labelled as a big drinking, fun party kind of guy. And everyone knew me for that. My whole industry knew me for that. All of my friends knew me for that. So again, that fear around change of not being that person was probably the hardest part, in truth. Finding me again. Who was me underneath it all? And I would have described myself when I was drinking as an extrovert. And then when I removed alcohol, realised I was a classic introvert. Even though I can put on, the front man persona, as it were, classic introvert. I didn't even know who I was. I mean, imagine that. At that time, I was 35 years old. I had no idea who I actually was until I removed alcohol. And then got comfortable with that, and then really comfortable with it, and then realised there's something powerful about that. There's something really powerful about being authentically you and showing up in a group of people and not having to drink alcohol to turn into someone that you're not. And that was certainly me. And that you can just be you, whether that's extrovert, introvert, whatever it is. There's something attractive about that. And I don't mean to the opposite sex. I mean just in like an energy attraction to that people sort of, they notice it, they pick up on it, even if it's not a conscious thing. And I really started to lean into that and step into it. And what amazed me is that it didn't take very long for that persona to completely shift. So within my industry, I went from the big drinker kind of guy, and honestly, I think it was 6 months later, to the health and wellness, the really fit guy, the guy that doesn't drink guy, which amazed me. I thought I'd never shift that identity. And within 6 months, it was almost like the old boozy me had been forgotten, which I think again was really impactful. And then I just got courageous in all my decisions. I remember I'd take clients out and then they'd just about get past the fact that I wasn't drinking, right? This would be like a big deal. Bearing in mind, this is 12 years ago, right? This is before alcohol-free drinks or anything. And then the waiter would come round and say, any dietary requirements? And I would pipe up and say, and the only way to describe it, I'm vegan. And my clients' jaws would just like slam. They'd be like, what? You're not drinking and you're now this, like a vegan. I mean, it's plant-based, but it was the only way to describe it. People didn't understand it. So it just built that momentum of courage. And for me, I never, ever thought I would leave that industry. is the truth of it. I didn't think financially I'd ever be able to, right? It's a very well-paid industry. I owned a brokerage, I had a franchise within that. I started this training and coaching, just fell in love with it. Went back to university, as mentioned, a couple of times part-time. For 7 years I was at university part-time whilst running the brokerages, started to write the books and do the TED Talks, and just thought, this is where I want to spend my life. I want to use my life force for good. I can put it in this career and earn loads of money. Great. Who's that going to help? Me and my immediate family? And is it going to help me and my immediate family? I would argue it wouldn't, because actually it was putting me under so much stress and strain. I was drinking too much. Therefore, can I put my life force into something more worthwhile? And then it took that courageous decision to step away from that industry. And, I'm talking, I walked away from ridiculous contracts to pretty much start from scratch, to go out on this entrepreneurial adventure of coaching and then training coaches and then being in the alcohol-free space. Best decision I ever made. Best decision I ever made. Most courageous decision I ever made, bar none. And I feel very grateful for that. And the wonderful irony is this: I now do loads of work back in the broking world, the trading world, training now and coaching the brokers and traders in optimal performance because of all the training that I've known. So I skip all the the stressful bits and get all the joy from contribution, and now I train them in what I know, which I do so much work, predominantly with men, helping them become better at their jobs and better men as well, which is really important for me. It's not just them performing better so they can earn more money. It's like getting, really aligned with their values like I did, so they can be the husbands or partners they want to be, the parents they want to be, as well as be successful in their careers.
Absolutely. Tell me how much, because I work in professional sports, as you know, you were a professional athlete. How much of this drive, this courage, someone might label this fearlessness, but I don't know that fearlessness truly exists. We all have fears. Comes from your years of being dedicated to football. And when I say football, for those Americans that are listening, that's soccer. So I want to make sure I'm clarifying, but connect that to me and how that identity is weaved into this.
Yeah, I think for me, soccer, let's give it its American name, or North American name, sorry. I think it was the greatest gift I was ever given. And I do lots of work now with athletes transitioning their career, because I believe that grounded in sport, I think sport is so important. Whether you play at professional level is irrelevant. Sport is so important in this world right now. You need to lose. You need to get dropped. You need to get injured. You need to get things wrong. You need to make mistakes and miss time tackles and all of those things. That's how we build resilience in many ways. So sport just taught me unbelievable resilience, and it was taken away from me at the age of 21. I got an injury that ended my career, right, which was devastating at the time, devastating, but you have to bounce back. So it taught me so much. And also there's an addition to that. One, I wasn't brilliant. I was good enough to play.
Yeah.
And I always joke, I have like ginger hair, and in the UK that's just a thing, right? We just find that hilarious. And it's just an easy. So I wasn't that good. The team that I predominantly played for wasn't very good, and being a ginger. So that is just a recipe for abuse from fans. So let's just say, and my style was I was quite a sort of an aggressive kind of player. So I just got abused all the time. Now, and I sort of joke about it, but it's true. So that when I then, for example, went into the trading pits, right, and the screaming and shouting, that was easy for me. It was just like, well, what's this? There's a couple of guys shouting around and waving their hat. Do you know what I mean? I've been over here getting shouted at and abused for the last however many years. So it sort of made that transition really easy.
It's such a great point. I love that point because, man, do I get beat up in the media or social media and as a general manager, because, man, if the team's not playing well, they all think it's my fault. And at this level of hockey, that is not how it works. And so I'm like, no, that is not me. But okay, and it doesn't matter how many interviews I give or how many interviews our head coach gives, it's still my fault. And so, but it does make you more resilient. And then when you walk into the next endeavor, and not everything when you're an entrepreneur succeeds. So we don't put in our bios all the shit that didn't work. So I imagine you've run into some of that too, where you've tried things and it hasn't worked in this space.
Yeah, I mean, all the way through my career, there's a wonderful quote that I read in Tony Robbins' book many moons ago, and that really kick-started my whole self-development adventure. I'm always grateful for Tony Robbins for that. And the quote was this, that he borrowed from Epictetus, a great Stoic philosopher from 2,000 odd years earlier. It's not events that shape our lives, but our beliefs about them. It's not the events that shape our lives, but our beliefs about them. It's the greatest quote I've ever read in my life, always will be, I'll take it to the grave. I've just leveraged that wisdom continually ever since then. And that happened well before my alcohol-free adventure. So whenever I meet with a certain scenario or a setback, I just look at the beliefs that I could hold about that given event and try and skillfully choose the one that's going to help me bounce back. For example, when before I released my first book, I'd never written a book before, left school at 16 to go and pursue the career of being a footballer, would be dyslexic in many ways, hyperactive. I mean, I had loads of labels. That was before labels were a thing. I had lots of them. They started to experiment, I think, their labels with me. But so I write this 10,000 word book full of spelling mistakes and whatnot. And it's my motivational story of going alcohol free. It's all upbeat, it's all energized, it's a new message, it's not doom and gloom, it's not rock bottom, it's like optimal performance, take a break, voomp, unlock this superpower. And someone says to me, share it with a book agent. The book agent will get you in front of all the big publishers. And bear in mind, this is like the speech story, this is really early, that actually supersedes that. So I share it with this book agent, voomp, comes back almost instantly, email, Andy, I've read your book. I have to say, it's shite. No one is going to want to read this book. It's rubbish. Who's going to want to read this? Banging on about being alcohol-free. I'm not joking. That was the feedback that came back. Now, I had a choice right in that moment. What I could choose to believe. I could choose to believe, that's it. I left school at 16. I'm done. Can't spell. I give up. Or I could choose to believe, well, do you know what? If this book helps one person, wouldn't that be something? And I chose to believe that. Spelling mistakes and all. So we put that little book out onto the internet ourselves. I mean, when I say a little book, it was literally saved as a PDF, put on a website that you could download. 50,000 downloads later, it's whizzing around the whole world. People from Brazil, Argentina, North America, coming back, really resonating with the story that Pam Macmillan, one of the world's biggest publishers, got wind of it and said, could you write a real book? And I was like, well, I'm not that good at spelling. They went, we don't care. That's what we do. We'll tidy that stuff up. And then it goes on and, it's the genesis of this whole movement that, again, if you look collectively, has probably helped 1 million people.
Right.
I mean, how cool is that? And I think that is, if there's one thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've seen this and probably agree to some form, that most successful people are usually the ones that are most willing to take a chance knowing it's highly likely they're going to fail. Or it's highly likely there's going to be some whopping great big setbacks on the way. Most people can't bear the thought of that, so they don't try. Really successful people can just keep going, knowing that it's going to go wrong, which doesn't seem to compute for a lot of people. They don't do it going, everything's going to go perfectly. They do it knowing, but what the secret is, you'll learn. So you can't ever lose, right? You just learn all the time.
Yeah. One of my mantras is I'm growing, I'm growing, I'm growing. And it's 2 words repeated 3 times, because sometimes when I hit those walls, I hit those failures, I'm tired, I know I'm growing. And that motivates me to keep going. And there's no part of my DNA similar to yours where I'm not stopping. So, because this sounds to me like a calling for you. And I talk about careers and jobs in 4 different buckets, like a job, a career, a passion, and a calling. And a calling is like, when I got asked why I wrote my book, I'm like, it was just a calling. I have a hard time putting language behind a book, which is ironic, but yeah, does it feel like a calling, like this work you've been doing, and why it's helped you be so resilient when you do get your book called shit and all this stuff?
And by the way, just a quick aside, having read your book, it's brilliant. And I know lots of listeners will already have pre-ordered, but make sure you do. Yeah, I think it does. I think, when you tap into something like this, it's never deliberate. It was never meant to be a thing. Like, if you'd asked me, 2 weeks before I even took a break from alcohol, like, was I ever going to stop drinking? I just don't think it ever would have computed, let alone effectively it's taken over my life for the best part of 12 years, banging on about the same thing most days, about the joys and the wins of being alcohol free. And you can never find your meaning or your calling with a flip chart and a red pen and a brainstorm. I just don't think you can ever do that. I think you have to go and collide with life, and you stumble into it along the way. But I think you're much more likely to stumble into it if you're courageous in your choices. I think too many people, again, for the same reasons, get so stuck in that comfort zone and then lose that sense of momentum and meaning with that, and wonder why life feels a bit dull and a bit grey and a bit meh, versus those that are going out there and colliding with it and having some whopping great big stumbles and, failures and setbacks along the way. I think you're much more likely through one of those setbacks and failures and learns, to wake up one day and go, my life is completely full of purpose now. And I never could have predicted this. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit. You mentioned your wife, Tara, and your daughters, but the podcast title, Women In, is just so, I want to talk about this for a minute, because obviously you have impactful women in your life, but I named the podcast Women In ... for a reason, because originally I was just going to do a podcast about women in sports, and I was going to talk, because I'm a woman in sports, and there's, I'm helping women lift up in this industry, but I was like, no, it's bigger than that. So I kicked out the sports, and I added the 3 dots. I wanted men on the podcast too, because the word men is in women. Men came from women, and there are often very important women in men's lives. And so I want to talk about, Andy, the women in your life and who has helped you become the Andy that stands before me today of these women, including your wife and daughters, if you want to elaborate more on them.
Yeah, well, my mum, first and foremost, I'm really lucky. My parents are still together. My lovely mum, I've got 2 brothers, so 3 boys. That's not easy.
No.
That's not easy.
What's your mom's name?
She's Kathy.
Kath, good job raising 3 boys. Yeah. That's not easy.
Especially if you've got a crazy ginger one. I'm just putting that out there. That's even harder. I'm going to say that much. But she's she's devoted. Her meaning and purpose has been her boys. It just has. So her life has been full of meaning and purpose. My mum's like me, right? So she's passed on that dyslexic gene to us, and we always sort of joke about it. And she'll always say how forgetful she is. But she remembers everything about our childhoods. Everything. It's always got a story, like the time, the place, what we were wearing. And what that makes me realise is that it's not that she's forgetful at all, as she tells herself in many ways. She's just locked in. That meaning and purpose for her was our family. That's why she retains all of that information in a way that other people don't, right? I can't remember any of that stuff. Every single detail, because that is her meaning and purpose in life in many ways. And it's nice now that us boys have obviously grown up and we've all done okay for ourselves, and now they enjoy their retirement and all those wonderful things. I'm actually seeing her on, mum and dad on Sunday, which would be nice. Yeah. So yeah, I feel very grateful. I've had wonderful women in my life to really role model me, I think, in the right way. And now I have my own, my lovely wife Tara, who's like the rock behind everything. And the irony is that Tara still drinks. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say to me, how does that work? I'm like, it works brilliantly. That's Tara's choice, right? It's not my choice whether she wants to drink or not. I don't expect her to follow my behaviours just because it works for me. Now, I will say Tara drinks a lot less than we did when we were drinking together, but she still drinks. Like, that's her choice and always will be. And I love her and I respect her for that. And if she decides to come and join me on the fun side, brilliant. If not, crack on. And then I have my daughters as well, who, are everything for me in my life. And again, one of my big motivators of being alcohol-free was I wanted to be that dad. And I can honestly, hand on heart, say, for especially the last 12 of those years, which is basically the best part of their lives, they're only 18 and 20, I've absolutely been there. Present, strong, there for them in every which way that they need me to be there. Never missed class assemblies, sports days. Even though I was in those big high-flying jobs, I refused to miss those kind of days. And I'll tell you why that happened. When I was weak, because I was drinking alcohol, I would have missed those days. Mm-hmm. I would have stayed in the office. When I was powerful and alcohol was removed, and I knew I'd always be a 9 out of 10 in terms of my performance, I also knew no one could ever question me walking out of that office and going to my child's class assembly or a sports day, because I was always at that level. When alcohol's in your world and you're up and down and yo-yoing around, that weakness would have meant I didn't go to those things, and you can't get that time back. I missed borderline nothing for those 12 years, and I'm so grateful for that. We have a brilliant relationship. Just yesterday I was up in Manchester seeing my eldest daughter. I feel very grateful. I love having women in my life. Although I did get a dog, I made sure it was a boy, just to try and balance things out ever so slightly.
Or you can go see your brothers, right?
Yeah, I've got loads of those. I'm with my big brother tomorrow, yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a great group of women you're surrounded with. And I'm in a similar relationship. My husband still drinks, and he's never been a big drinker. And we started dating. I'm on my 3rd times the charm marriage. So we were, I was 40 when we started dating, and he's a couple years younger than me. And he was never a big drinker. And I remember being on our 2nd date and knowing, because you know when you're with a drinker, you know, you and I know, if we were drinking together, we would know. We'd be like, oh, we can both drink probably at the same pace. But when you're with someone that really truly is take it or leave it, I'm like, and I knew that on the 2nd date, and I'm like, ooh, I got a choice here. And I remember like thinking that, and I thought, this is good for you, Tony, not knowing what the future held, obviously. And so, yeah, he still drinks periodically, and I could give a shit. So that's his choice. And both, it doesn't have to be either or. The lesson is that life isn't either or, it's yes and. A lot of things can coexist.
Yeah, I so agree with you that. And, you know, when it comes to the whole change piece, I always tell this story because I think it's funny, but it also relays what we're about to say, is that people have to be ready to change. You can't force people to change. And I figured that out, you know, in the last 12 years of being in this space. I'm just trying to inspire people all the time. This is what I do. I get some great results. Why don't you give it a try? Rather than, you know, finger wagging, you should do this or shouldn't do that. And I remember my lovely Tara, she does occasionally take a break. So she does this, she's doing this health thing, this health kick exercise program. Anyway, she starts this exercise program. It's a 90-day thing. And unbeknownst to her, when she starts it, the guy out front says, well, if you want to get best results, don't drink. I thought, oh, that's a clever move. Get everyone in and then tell them not to drink. Because it's true, right? They're all going to get best results if they don't drink. They're going to be fitter, faster, more consistent. They're going to ditch all those unnecessary calories. All of those wonderful things, right? Genius on his part. 6-pack revolution, that was what it was called. And so Tara does this, gets 45 days in, lost weight already. Like looking, honestly, as fit and healthy as I've ever seen her look. Getting more things done. Anyway, she pulls me to one side. Bear in mind, this is only a few years ago. Pulls me to one side, like she's telling me a secret. She's like, Andy, you're not going to believe this. 45 days into this, you know, this fitness program, I haven't been drinking. I'm getting more stuff done. Feel more peaceful. I think I'm better with the kids. Lost a lot of weight. Skin's glowing. And I'm looking at it going, are you having a laugh? I've been banging on about that for 10 years. You've listened to me say that every single day for 10 years. And you've had to do a blooming exercise program to figure it out. And now you're telling me like it's a secret. I said, I know.
Were you like, have you watched my TEDx?
Have you not heard me every single day on social media banging on about this thing? Clearly she doesn't watch them. But it sort of makes me laugh, but it gets a really important point across. People have to be ready to change, and they have to be ready to hear it when they want to hear it. And trying to force change on people because you've decided to change always ends up in tears. Just be you and inspire them.
Yeah, that is hilarious and off. And I tell you, those that are closest to us, we're nothing special. We're just, we're just Tony and Andy doing our thing. They don't watch our social media. They don't listen. We're just white noise, but they love us.
They're like, swipe. Oh, there he is again. Bore off, swipe.
Yeah. Okay. I know we started here, so I want to end at this point, not right now, but after this question, and talk about the docuseries. So Talk about because this is a 3-year long project, and that's a long time to be like working on something, and you are passionate to be that committed. So like talk what if someone is like, I want to do a docu-series but it sounds so big and grand. What did you do to start this? Who are the experts you're reaching out to? How did you design the what's going to be talked about and how? There's a lot of questions in that, but I think it's really important to showcase this.
Yeah, and I do think like everything in life, from the book to the speaks, right? It's always been said I've got a great face for radio, right? So had I finished that, it would never have happened. But I was actually really lucky. So the director, John Hyatt, who's based in Toronto, it's a North American, who's brilliant, by the way, had made this great documentary called Screened Out, which is all about screen phone usage in our children. It was on to his next documentary, which was about health and wellness. So he'd literally gone around the world. He's talking to the top thought leaders and thinkers in health and wellness. During that period, he gets onto my stuff, is inspired to take a break from alcohol. So he's getting his own results, alcohol-free, losing weight, fit, healthy, feeling amazing, whilst he's also filming for this documentary about health and wellness. He sort of gets to the end of those trips on the cutting room floor and looks at it and says, not one person mentioned alcohol. Not one person. How can that be? And he's having his own experience of the massive transformation in terms of his wellness around being alcohol free, and said, look, would you be the expert in my documentary? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. And in that conversation, I said to him, look, I think alcohol free is its own documentary. And he came straight back and was like, I agree. Let me just finish this one and I'll loop back, which he did. And that really kickstarted the process. So I've been really fortunate. I've had a brilliant team around me. I didn't go looking for it. It just sort of organically happened. John and his team have put it together and done a lot of the work, the narrative. We had 200 hours of footage.
Wow. That's
now just, an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, even the editing of that thing is huge, but it paints a wonderful story. It's at that movie style end. It looks really super sort of Netflix, game changers, professional. I think it's going to reach so many people in a way that maybe social media doesn't, or the books don't, or podcasts can't. I think it will get a new group of people interested in being alcohol free. It debunks those big myths around, is red wine good for you, and gets into the science around cancer and alcohol, for example, as well as we take 6 participants from predominantly North America and one guy here in the UK, and I coach them through a 90-day break, and we track them the whole way. We've got them when they were drinking, filmed them, all their blood work, all their stats, then the whole way through that process, the challenges they might face, the successes that they have. Will they make it? You'll have to watch the film and find out. And then we've got all of that on camera, and it's wonderful. And then we're spinning out all the time into the science, into the marketing of alcohol, into the debunking some of the myths, as well as charting their journey. And really the whole energy of the movie is, why don't you just take a break? Same thing again, not finger waggy. It's like, well, look, if some of these benefits that you've just seen before you, and you've seen all like the medical professionals and all the wonderful information you've just seen, imagine if some of those benefits are waiting for you. Come and join us, just take a break and see how you get on. And that's my hope for it. My dream, and I keep saying this, is that unlike most documentaries, people might watch it and go, oh, that was entertaining. And maybe they tell their friends about it because it was entertaining. My hope for this documentary is that someone will watch it, go alcohol free, get amazing results, look physically different, and people will say to them, what on earth have you been doing? You look incredible. And they'll say, I watched this documentary called Going Dry. You should try it. So I think that there could be that, hopefully, that real lovely momentum of the sort of physical changes and psychological changes in people that almost promotes the documentary as they share that it was the documentary that inspired them.
Where will this be available, Andy?
So we're just launching our small cinematic release. So we will be doing launches in North America, in some of the major cities in North America, cinematic releases as well as the UK. Then we don't know. That's still up for grabs. All of those conversations are being held at the moment. It could end up on terrestrial TV or on a big streaming platform or straight to YouTube. We sort of don't know at the moment. So yeah, it's right on the cusp of sorting a few of those things out.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait to see it. And I'm a big fan of the, when you were talking about filming the drinkers, can you imagine if we were the people that they were filming back in the day? Oh my God, that would have been cringy. Because you were, I'm Tony Party Time and you were Andy Fun Time. What were you, Andy?
Yeah. That's right.
It would have been, I would have been like,
more fun time. You're Tony more fun time, party time now, because you're alcohol free. That's the way we're looking.
But man, just to be willing to be filmed as a drinker, take the 90-day break, have blood work, like see the transformation. I can't wait to see it. And it's awesome to see this. And really, the hour and 22 minutes that it turned into is truly, and you painted this picture, but I want to underscore it, was 3 years and 200 hours of footage. It's a lot of work to do these projects. So I'm applauding you from over here in Michigan.
Yeah, but on that note, you could do these things so much simpler. I think what I've learned through the process is you don't need as much bells and whistles to create something really impactful. I think if you've got an important story to share, go and share it. I think especially in a world that's becoming awash with AI and fakery, I actually think documentaries and real stories that are documented are going to be more and more valuable to people over time. So yeah, if you've got a story, why not? What's stopping you? You could almost start on your phone, is the truth.
You can, absolutely. Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming on Women In and being a part of my life and all the lives you've changed with your story and your courageousness. And I can't wait to see the documentary going dry and read your books and all the things. So if people want to connect with you, work with you in your coaching business, all the things, where can they find you?
So andyramage.com, coachbusiness.school. If you want to watch the movie, you can go to goingdrymovie.com. There's a trailer on there and you can put your details in, then we'll let you know when the full movie's released. They're the best places. And then on the socials at Andy Ramage Official is probably best.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Tony, you're an absolute star. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm so proud of you and I'm really excited for the big book launch in August. What date did you say?
Yeah,
is that now
August 11th. Yep, it's happening. I know. We're about 90 days out. What is today? Yeah, we're about 90 days out. It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah, that's exciting. When you see the book in people's hands, and then you've got all those wonderful things on a bookshelf. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. It definitely is a dream come true. So yeah, and all those hours that went into that.
Exactly.
So if you all are looking to connect with me, I'm not hard to find. The hockey side of my life is at kwings.com. And then my book, Rebellious Success, my coaching, the podcast, all the things I'm working on is at tonywill.com. And I too am on all the social medias at Tony Will. So I will see you all next time.